Pasha Paroh Y NET 7. Thank you for tuning back with us today. Shelly, how you doing today, Shelly?
I'm great. How are you doing today?
Always the perfect day. Always the perfect day. Take a brief moment, introduce yourself, let them know your names and a little bit about you.
Well, my name is Shali. I also have a YouTube channel, is Real Vision. Um, I guess you could say a self-proclaimed scholar. I do a lot of study, a lot of research, a lot of historical research, a lot of things that people don't tend to do these days. So, yeah, that's where we're at right now.
Facts. Awesome. So we're gonna get into it today with today's conversation. I like to bounce ideas around, and we came up with this as a great topic for the day based on the moment and the activities of the globe. So what we're gonna be rocking with today is breaking free, navigating and redefining self-expression in urban culture. All right. Just real quick off the top, what comes to mind real quick off the top? We're gonna go into it, but just real quick, what's the first couple things that come in your mind when you see that title?
Okay, actually, a little bit of self comes to mind because what a lot of people don't know is I actually am a convicted felon. I have a long past within the urban culture, and I've lived in a lot of different urban areas across America. And in the last couple years, have had to myself break free from the programming of certain, types of music and certain types of ways of living in certain urban areas, and had to realize that I wasn't acting as myself, but acting as what the societal construct of those areas deemed fit or deemed, what should be. So actually, when you first brought this idea to me, I mentioned programming and indoctrination. And then I thought about, all of the different things just in America. There's so many different programs. We're going to call them programs in America, and different cultures that basically create these personas in people. Because I don't want to say that these are people acting as themselves. They're not. They're acting as these personas. And so originally when you brought this,
The original AI.
Yes. Yeah. So when you originally brought that to me, that's what I thought of. But now when I'm looking at this now and it says breaking free, navigating and redefining self-expression in urban culture, I immediately thought of myself and redefining, or even just remembering myself at my true soul essence, which I'm still in the process of, but have definitely broke free from some of those things.
Awesome. And it's really rewarding to know that not only will this encourage the greater audience to have self-reflection, but even it was powerful enough to hit you at that moment like that too, where it was like, because when we look at the one thing I do want to show on a separate slide today is the definition or the etymology of express, which expression comes from, for those who maybe aren't as active with words as you and I are, you and me. So express is to state, represent, depict. So when we go down to expression, that was 1384. The noun form of the verb came into play approximately 1425, which was the action of pressing out. So if we are pressing out or representing ourselves, right?
Which most people don't.
Because of the programming.
Yes.
And that kind of answers the question I was going to ask you, but what does that invite, right? Because the word was represent also. So what happens if you're not pressing out yourself? Ultimately, give us a quick summary of what do you think is going on in layman's terms, and now I want to go over the itinerary for what we're going to do today.
Okay, so if you're not expressing yourself, then you're basically going along with the construct of everything that most people, when they ask themselves, does this even make me happy? It usually doesn't. So when you refuse to truly be you, and you're putting on this persona or expressing whatever representative that you think is supposed to be accepted in society, then you're just continuing the illusion,
The
because
illusion.
that's what it is. It's an illusion.
That's a perfect word for it. So what I want to do today is I want to cover some things. I want to go over like kind of like how obviously this conversation is centered around cultural and societal expectations shaping behavior and our own self-expressions. So I want to kind of go over like some of the most obvious ways that occurs, maybe a couple of the least obvious ways. I want to talk about how it presents itself in business world and economics. I want to get to our communication factors of TV, radio, and internet, and then I want to take a little curve and off the ramp off the highway and tie this all together with how social credit score is going to play a role into this. And then I think at the end we can wrap it up with 5 things that we must do as a community ASAP. All right, how that sound to you?
Sounds good.
Okay, so we know those who conform, right, um, to the prevailing cultural and societal expectations, right, are the individuals who adhere to the established cultural norms and societal norms, right, that create the
Right.
expectations. And as a benefit, like, because ultimately when you talk to people about, oh, the social credit score system, I'm like, well, you guys got to realize this was already in place. They're just kind of digitizing it. And they're like, what do you mean this didn't exist before? They're going to be able to have all this control and right? But the societal norms that create the expectations create a reward system that give the certain people greater social acceptance, increase opportunities in life, right, because they're the supposed higher social status within the communities. um, this could include individuals who conform to the gender roles, religious beliefs, and other stuff too. So how have how did, from your perspective, how have cultural norms around behavior and self-expression changed over time, and what factors do you think contributed to it?
Well, if you notice a lot of things, even like within the, credit score and the financial end of it, which, all of that's more or less kind of planned and guided, it happens gradually. Like if we can look back and we can look at eras in time, like the Renaissance and the Dark Ages, and then you can even, go closer to America, like in the 1920s and the 1940s and the 1950s. And we can look at those times and see a great difference from then to now. And you can also see the socially acceptable norms for those times as compared to now, and how there's such a vast difference. I mean, we went, from the 19, so it's 2023 now, right? Even in the 70s and 80s, there were certain things that were just not socially acceptable that are almost being forced, down our throats now. And I think it's, I think as a person who actually studies history, and I'm talking, I go even, further than, Bible times and, Egyptian times. I mean, I try to really get in there with some of these searches, and it's a lot of times it's also hard to find some things because of, I guess because of how they wanted the narrative to be displayed, that they did have to hide certain things, because
Right.
otherwise we would have more knowledge and connection with all the stuff that's going on. But it's crazy, even from, just the time that we were kids, we used to be able to listen to the radio, and, there was not one cuss word. They were, if there was, it was bleeped out. The commercials were more or less family acceptable. Now you turn the family radio on during, family hours, let's just say 9 to 5, when, there might be kids or whatever listening. And you can't even get the commercials to be safe. They're over here broadcasting BBLs and boob lifts and strippers. And so it's like, and then not to mention the music, the extremes that the music has went to where even listening on the radio now, you're hearing the A word, the B word, the F word. And we've got kids listening to this. And when you see, people's TikToks or Facebook videos, not only do the kids listen to it, but they're sitting there, you're watching them repeat it like word for word. And
For
not
what?
only are they repeating these things, but they're emulating the I mean, not propaganda, but the lifestyle
Good
that's
word.
being expressed, that word that you just said, by whatever artist is expressing it. And we know that there's a we know there's a plan. We know there was a reason for all of this. But when you look back, just even in the last, I'm 35 now, even in the last 35 years, we went from mild to just blatant immorality in public, in public faces. Just it's right in your face. There's no
No
there's no
boundaries anymore.
prudence. There's no like save the children. Like, we're not even covering their ears or their eyes with this, because it's gotten so excessive in every commercial and everything we turn on, everything we look at. We look at a billboard, there's a naked woman advertising the next strip club down the street. Like,
And
and
other stuff
it's
too.
really, if you think, go, sir.
They sexualize everything. I mean, and you bring up some great points. Go back and look at the cartoons that we used to watch, or that you know the generation after us used to watch, or that our parents even used to watch, and you'll
Yes.
find sexual hidden content. Everybody's seen that with Disney and their
now
drawing techniques and
now
stuff like
that
that.
we're aware, we're
Hold on,
noticing
Shelly.
it.
Let me give you this ramp so you can run up this question real quick. So
Okay.
we know that there's targets and everything and agendas, and some of the most obvious ones that help shape and mold are the cultural expectations and societal pressures, like is race and religion, gender, ethnicity. So can you think of any examples? I know you're into history, and I like to call history their script that they gave us, and antiquity the
Yeah.
real accounts, right?
Yeah.
So can you think of any examples where cultural norms have been challenged or disrupted, and what impact did that have on society in that era?
um I mean, I guess you could say, I guess these are when we would see great wars happen, or when there would be revolutions, or uprisings.
Hmm.
We could look at certain times. Let's say, see, I tend to be more on a spiritual side of
Hmm.
things. So I don't want to constantly reference the Bible, or certain religious practices, but like I said, these would be times where there would be uprisings, or you could see where there was, coup d'etats, or however you want to say that, where there's a certain, person in charge, and there's an uprising or a secret, plan to get that person out to put another person in, because they're not, operating things correctly, or because they're not um, agreeing with the status quo of that person's ruling. Or you can even say, now, um, I don't want to get too political either, because I want to stay,
Do you
these things, subjects can be touchy. But
you
repeat the
represent?
question one more time so I can get my footing again.
Sure, sure, and keep in mind, we're not in here doing nothing crazy. You represent in anything that you say a certain percentage of the population today. The benefit of these type of conversations without limits and without bounds is actually part of what we'll get into, like in some of the opportunities to help solve the situation under TV broadcast stuff like that. Is we need to be able to have a voice and speak out. So no, everything that I'm the one that's like equation based, as everybody know from watching Y-Net 7. And I'm always like, okay, I don't focus on variables, I look at the equations. But I like people to have their certain perspectives, because it supports other people with that same perspective, and it allows the thread to be woven or sewn in to tie it all together for people who thought they were on an island by themselves, or totally against that that thought process or question, we can show you here on YNET 7 how it's all part of the infinity that we need to come together to actually make change. All
Right.
right. No, this is a safe space. That's what we need to create, is safe spaces. All right. So here we go. Let's get back to it. Um, basically, I mean, I think you kind of answered it already, and so I'll save you the because you said those are the times of uprising and upheaval.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yes.
people, old governments and leadership got to get out the way. New ones come in, good or bad, for better or for worse, whatever. But that's really when it comes to a head, as far as the question being, when have examples of cultural norms have been challenged or disrupted, and the impact it had on society. So I want to move it along and transition into this part is going to transition us into the business concept of it, so we can get into discussing some of that for the business minded folks. And I want to go, we talked about some of the most obvious. Let's look at like some of the least obvious ways this exists, like geographic regions, socioeconomic status, education levels. How do societal expectations influence our relationships with others, both in terms of personal interactions and professional settings?
Well, the thing about it is because, when you look at not just America, and America in itself to a lot of other countries is considered Babylon, because in itself it is just so, I'm going to say, special, in the way that it is so diverse, and there's so many different types of programming in America. A lot of other countries where, even though they might have media and they might have music, they don't deal with all of the different personas and the he, they, she, and then you've got the hip hop, then you've got the goth, and then you've got the professionals, and you've got the stockbrokers and the lawyers. America's like a cesspot of different, I guess you can say, made up identities or illusions that these people live out. And when you look at like the Hazda tribe, or the nomadic reindeer, Ninettes in Yakutia, and you look at how they operate. See, for one, the way our society is structured, it's structured off of, like you said, business, machines, services, goods. It's not structured in a way that at one point we were all structured, or in a way that a lot of other cultures are still structured, where they're more structured based off of, living off the land and more natural things. We've become such a microwave society, I'm going to say, where we want everything quick. So there's been an invention for every single thing you could think of. And then on top of that, we have the structure of, from the warehouse workers that get the goods to ship them to wherever, to where they can be sold in the stores. And then you have, like I said, your lawyers, your doctors, your accountants, your the ones that handle the money. I think, depending on where you've grown up, to be honest with you, I think the area that you've grown up in, whether you lived in the hood, or whether you had a better chance at life, or in the suburbs, that for one has a big role in what you become in life, as far as your career. And I also believe that, family has to do with that, with a lot of people who become successful. Not everybody, because there's a lot of people that are driven to success because they didn't have, either family help, or because they were poor. But most people, if you realize, in the professional settings, and when we get into the higher ups, even in politics, a lot of them they're not even good at what they do, but because they have certain connections, they were able to get in or get this certain job. Or, when you get to a certain level with this, it's not even what you know anymore. It's really who you know, or who can put you in that position. Because when you start breaking it down to the knowledge or skill that these people have, that's not there. So I guess
that's painful too.
That's painful,
because
it's true.
It stumps innovation. Go ahead.
Right.
Excuse me.
Look, and this is why we suffer, for one, because when you really break it down, am I saying that certain inventions are certain commodities, or like you what would you say? Amenities are bad? No, but when it comes to where every single thing has become, some type of machine or something, like it's taken us completely away from any type of natural vibration, for one. So we're not even connected to nature to even fully, a lot of people I don't even think have feelings these days. And when I say feelings, I'm not even speaking of emotion. I'm speaking of just general connection to
Right.
life or creation or anything, because we've gotten so involved in this, for one, mostly a illusory society that's structured based off of, you know, um,
The program.
rank of yeah, not just the program, but for those who have a big play in hands in how we're programmed. You know,
Yeah.
we can
So
we can really look at it and say that the majority of society, we are all slaves to this. We
oh,
are all slaves to this program, and we are all slaves to those that are handling the program. And I'm not
I'm really
talking
glad you
about
brought that up. I'm really glad you brought that up because we have to first accept that before we can see the value in doing something different to promote the change as a community as a whole. It does us no good if just me, you, and 45 other people feel this. We have to reach critical
right.
mass, correct?
Yes, and that is, then we could start talking about, that's like 144,000 and this and this and this, where we could get to that tipping point to where we start to send that vibration out and it starts truly affecting others. And here's the thing is, when you ask these questions and you're speaking on how it's changed from, back then to now, these programmers have slowly planned that change. Like,
Yeah.
a lot of people aren't aware there's these certain things, I think they call them Q maps or whatever. And if you look at some of these from like the 80s, they like literally have wrote down stuff that we're seeing transpire now.
Yeah.
Even in the music that we listen to,
and
but we think,
beyond the 80s as well too. Let me jump in here and say this. So what we got to do is we got to encourage critical thinking and questioning of the established cultural norms and values in order to promote the greater self-awareness and autonomy, because I think you made a great point when basically what you were saying is we don't even for the most part know ourselves anymore to even know we're not vibrating on a natural frequency, and not even to recognize or have the awareness that because of all the technology, we're now vibrating on that frequency, and the fact of how that controls our DNA and thought processes and all that stuff. So celebrating diversity and promoting cultural exchange is a good way to do that in order to increase the exposure to different perspectives and challenge the stereotypes and prejudices. So let's move into the business side, right? Because business and marketers can benefit from understanding cultural and societal expectations around behavior and self-expression, as this can help them better target their products to potential customers and services to specific audiences. And it could also include the development of advertising and promo campaigns that actually tap into cultural values and aspirations, or the creation of products themselves that align with the prevailing cultural and societal norms. So what do you think about that when, as far as business, like isolated to just business?
okay, so I actually, for one, they do both. Not only are they going to try to sell a product that they know is going to sell, but like, let's say, they come up with a new product, they're going to market it in a way where it would seem, and honestly, they're going to pitch it different ways to different audiences. They're going to have the same one product, but they might have a commercial, with some certain type of music and this and this, area of town. But then when you hit the Hamptons or wherever, they're gonna have, a whole different way to commercialize it. So they're gonna sell the same product to whoever, but they're gonna market it differently. And I actually used to be a marketer for the medical field. And
Awesome.
it's funny that you say how and the way they advertise it differently to different people, are they're going to, how they're going to put it out there, because, it's true. I would kind of study the area I was in, let the other person talk a little bit. And then when I see where they were kind of at, I wouldn't like necessarily mimic it, but I would cater to that essence of whatever they were expressing, that word again, whatever they were expressing. So that way, to them, it was when people feel a certain type of connectivity to something, and that's how they get us. They get us, with the certain, lingo, or the certain visual things, or something that may even make us feel connected to it. Because when people feel that, they feel comfortable. And when they feel comfortable, they're more likely to hear what you have to say, to be even open for you to represent whatever product it is, whether it's a product or a service. And 9 times out of 10, they're going to start feeling closer to you because you're making that connection. And then they're more likely to either buy or engage in whatever service or product that you're trying to push to them. And so, this is me as, sir?
Connecting that brand awareness to the heart.
Yes. And this is me as just what some would say a regular lay person, realizing this in my own little marketing. So you can imagine what these big time, Procter and Gamble, and when you go up in the ladder, you realize that all of those companies are actually connected. And then you go up even further and you start realizing, well, that's connected. And then all of a sudden you realize they're really all owned by like 10, 15 different people. And it's crazy when you get to that point of it, but they have so much money and so many resources to really be able to hypnotize people into whatever they want, and they do.
Hypnotize.
And we see it every day.
I like that word that you use, hypnotize. And I really enjoy that you brought up at the top, we're talking about maybe 10, 15 people. And for the people that's going to be all nitpicky, that's not what we do here. We're equation based. So 10 or 15, don't go out there on the internet pulling it and say it's 75. We don't need, but what we understand is that out of all the billion people on the planet, there's a handful of them running it by executing flawless victories on the manipulation of this topic that we're covering here today. So we got,
and that's across the world.
Across the world, business affects,
and they get together.
Yeah, they have their little meetings and everything, the certain groups and stuff. So, but what we're going to look at here real quick before we leave business is, I like that you covered under the business behavior, it affects what products and services actually become popular, what marketing strategies are effective, and how businesses could actually interact with the customer. I think that's a great thing, not only that we're talking about some of the damaging effects of it, but that the small business owner that may be seeing this can actually, if they didn't already know, tie all this together to see how they can better position their brand. Now, that's good for the business and the business owner, but what about the workplace culture? You know what I mean? Like how employees communicate with one another, what is considered appropriate behavior at work, dress codes and languages. Like you were talking about, you can go to some jobs, if it's a small business owned local guy, maybe y'all know each other, y'all can be in there cutting the fuck up and having a ball. That creates a really high quality of life environment. Work gets done. Or you can go in here to the corporate slave job mentality where they put you in tight shoes and a collar around your neck, so so that you're most uncomfortable under the pretext that you work better when you're slightly uncomfortable in the cold environment. Talk about the workplace culture a little bit.
Okay, so I've actually experienced both of those settings that you just explained, where the one was just kind of lax. We got our work done. There was no, it didn't feel like someone was constantly on your neck. And then I've also experienced the sit at your desk. You're only supposed to go to the bathroom once or twice a day. You got your allotted 30-minute lunch, and you are just really expected to sit there 8 hours and crunch numbers or whatever it was, the task for that day. And I will say this, that is not, when you break it down to the pure animal essence of a human and take out, the societal programming, take out the buildings, take out everything. That is not natural for us, for one. Like, that is not we're not meant to sit behind a screen and crunch numbers or write, checks or whatever it is for an 8-hour period. We're not meant for that. Unfortunately, in today's world, money is very necessary. And, there is several ways to get money, one being in corporate settings. And a lot of people are actually and this is why I said we're all slaves. We're forced. And some could say, well, are you truly forced? Because everybody has free choice. Well, yes, everybody has free choice, but we also know with every choice comes at a consequence. So do I not go to work and now I'm homeless because in this societal, the way this is designed, we have to pay bills. So it's like you could say that, but then you could also say, well, if I am in this society and the society has been designed for me to pay bills and is designed for us to work indoors, so now I must take this job, and now I'm pretty much forced to either shuck and jive with that podcast in my ear, acting like I'm typing the whole 8 hours, or I'm literally daily, and let's say even if you go and you do, have a podcast in your ear, and it's, even just being stuck in a cubicle for that amount of time a day, it's really hard on the psyche. And I don't think this is why people have truly connected this to the full rise in mental health problems in America. I don't think they're even making the connection that it's to the 8-hour Monday through Friday forced work week. And this is the thing, and that's mild. There is a lot of people who have to work 14, 16, maybe even 20 hours because they're doing 2 different jobs, right, just to make ends meet because of how sick the inflation has gotten compared to our wages. And so truly, it's sick. And it's really sad because, it all goes back to that handful of people and the greed and the
control.
It's bad. So with that,
I think you got a good point
ahead.
here. I think you got a good point to transition, because I've covered that, and everything that you've brought up there is really powerful points. I have one video I did a while back called "Quit Your Job, Doctor's Orders," because of the cortisol levels. They're actually, the scientists are proving that some percentage of heart attacks and all those massive numbers and all the other categories of disease and disorders are contributed to the PTSD or the toxic workplace syndrome from people being in work and having an effect on their bodies. And the 8A, DAAA, whatever it is even for like the last 10 or 15 years quietly been providing disability approvals for PTSD based on work-related toxic workplace, if you look into that as well. So I think for when it comes down to business, because the company values, right, is more so geared around the profit and the net income. They give you this nice little cultural vision and mission statement and company values list but that's really built to just attract customers and employees, not to really appreciate them though, right? So I think what we want to do is we need to educate the individuals and the institutions on issues of the diversity, equity, and inclusion in order to promote greater understanding and empathy for different experiences and perspectives, but not just limited to the form that it is now. I mean, we need to take it to the level of equal quality of life. You know what I mean?
Most definitely.
So let's transition into television and media. How would you say has the rise of social media and other digital platforms impacted the way we express ourselves, and what role does television and other media play in this process that we're covering today?
Well, for the majority, it's been a negative impact, because the majority of people, unfortunately, they don't think for themselves, and they are susceptible to the mass programming. For people who enjoy information and who are able to kind of separate themselves and take a step back and actually see what's going on, These tools have been um, good for us, because not only have we been given the opportunity to look up a vast amount of information, with social media, we get a wide variety of in-depth look into different people's lives, which gives us, people like me and you, our data or our information to where we can even have these types of conversations. And but for the masses, I think it's almost an injustice. It's a distraction, for one. The social media is. It's also taken away any lines of moral dignity. We watch. I mean, just 2 days ago, watch these girls get killed at their cousin's house on live. Like, we're watching. Unfortunately, rapes, deaths, sex, uh, extreme brutal fights, animal abuse. I mean, the list of evils can go on, and these are accessible through these social media sites. Basically, any scroll, you're going to come across one of these things. Even if your algorithms is more geared toward knowledge or spirituality, you're still going to be hit with this anytime you scroll through any social media, whether it be Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, whatever it is, you're going to come across this.
You feel like that's part of the agenda?
You said what?
Do you feel like that is part of the agenda to force those visions on not only the people of the quote unquote United States jurisdiction, but to also put them out to the world to represent the United States jurisdiction to the world?
Well, I think it's meant to desensitize people, because there's going to be things that are starting to transpire. So it's not going to be as shocking, because we've already been so desensitized to these things. And I do believe it is intentional, because here, and I don't want to get, I don't want to get into like a race or a color thing, but when you look up the owners of some of these, like say BET or even CBS, or when you look into this and you see who is actually the one puppeteering these certain artists or entertainers, it's not, they're definitely not from the hood, and they definitely haven't lived, any type of lifestyle that they're trying to amplify these days. It's almost like they want to keep the masses in a state of constant low vibrational thinking, whether it be shaking ass, pimping hoes, whatever it is, whether it be, the constant conflict between, gang violence and the certain different rappers, like, say Trey the Truth or Zero, or we can even go Nas and Jay-Z and, whoever, we can see a difference between like certain underground rappers and the mainstream rappers.
Oh, yeah.
There's a huge difference. When you get these underground, not even rappers, let's just say underground artists in general, the stuff that they're speaking on, that's the real stuff. Like, coming from somebody who's grew up, in a white family in a suburban, or maybe let's say middle class family, but also as an adult experienced several different, like I said, urban areas in different states. I was able to, as a child, know, a certain way of living, and then as an adult experiencing a total another way of programmed life, because again, it's going back to the program. And when you look at this, there's no comparison in the real life actualities that truly go on to what they constantly try to force and manipulate our teens and our kids into believing. And not only are they creating this illusion of how it should be, but they also create the music to be so hypnotizing within the frequency and the beat numbers and the count. So they're not only, rapping, whatever it is, or trying to put whatever, propaganda out there, but they've got it, so tightened up to where even the music, it almost draws you in. Yeah. I mean, I've heard a few songs recently, and I don't listen to regular modern day music, but my daughter was on TikTok, and I think it was Ice Spice or something, and it literally sounded like carnival music. It was almost like, you know, doo, 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 doo. And I'm like, you know, that's how they drew people into the circus, because it was just like, come here, you know. And I'm like listening to this, and I'm like, that's not even music. That is warfare. That is
You're exposing it
warfare.
right now. Hey, look, I like where you're at with that, because you know I've been. Yes, you're absolutely right, and there's clearly a definitive line between um those people that are in control of media and what they want to let cross the line to become popular because of the agendas, etc., etc., etc. I like the fact that you brought up the frequency, the manipulation. Because see, what happens, what a lot of people, especially our youth, need to consider is that the attack is on a intangible level, right? They're not going to just come out here and tell you with a sign, hey, this is what we're doing to you. So when you see people or you see things at a certain height in popularity, or one, they probably paid for tons of publicity to appear that way. You know, you think it's got a 1.5 million views, so you're like, oh, this must be hot, I need to study it. Not us,
Right.
but people out there that aren't aware consciously of the attack, and then they go and
Yep.
they find a reason to like it, and then they want to play it because they want to be accepted into society, right? Here we go with these expectations that we're talking about, but they need to fit in. This got 1.5 million views, it must be what I need to listen to, and boom, now they're caught in the magnetic gravitational pull. So that's the
And they're
power of,
amplifying the ritual.
exactly, and that's the power of the portrayal of the cultural norms when it comes to the oppressors, so to speak, using it as a weapon. TV, radio, internet. So of course the TV is going to reflect and reinforce cultural norms, gender
Yep.
roles, racial stereotypes, and social hierarchies, and affect how people see themselves in comparison. And then that's when you get the, oh, I want to be like that, or you know, anti-back or whatever. And then, you know, it also influences the language and communications. So let me
Most
ask you this
definitely.
though, because here's what I think the opportunity for us is, as our society that's growing and reaching critical mass. We have the power now with the same tools. The thing is, we need to make it cool again to be hip on and hopping on knowledge. You know what I'm saying? And promoting that and pushing that, just like we would that booty clapping video, or
Right.
the crate falling off people videos, or whatever you want to say, that made us look like a bunch of fools. Um, you know, and granted, there's time and place for everything. I mean, even the most intellectual people want to clap some cheeks sometimes. I'm not saying it's not the place and
Right.
time
No,
for it, but
I agree
all right.
100%.
So let me ask you this: can you think of any examples where television or other media has challenged or reinforced the cultural and societal expectations? And again, what impact did it have on the viewers?
All right. I'm going to use, and I hope I'm not messing up, but I'm going to use a very recent um, event that we all experienced with COVID. And let's just say the vaccines that have now, after the fact, been determined to obviously not be the best idea. A lot of people who have gotten, you know, vaccinated are now regretting it, and now the research or whatever it is coming out that it wasn't the best idea. But during those times, and I never got vaccinated, will not be vaccinated. I'm going to stand firm on that. But during that time, I was almost ostracized, or even, you know, like, you know, at work, please wear 2 masks, stay in your office, you know, just crazy because of how the media, you know, had put it out there, even though there was not much studies done, even though we knew it was new. Like, for those of us that can see, we knew there was something shady with it. But because of the media backing it, and because of, you know, Bill Gates and Dr. Fauci, or whatever, all these supposedly, you know, higher ranking people that are supposed to be looking for our best interests, which aren't, because all of these people were pushing it, and because, you know, you could get your free Krispy Kreme donut if you come get vaccinated, a lot of people went for it, and a lot of people regret that they went for it. And that is like a recent example that we could go by, that we all witnessed, that thankfully, we're coming up out of that. Do I think that it's over? No, I do believe that there's going to be other types of viruses or other instances that arise that are going to be similar to that, especially as time goes on and we're going back into, what some would call the golden age or the reign of Christ. There's different ways to articulate it. But no, I do believe there's going to be another instance like that, and I do hope people that have went through this learned their lesson, especially when it comes to other people and their choices. But look how easily people were manipulated with
Absolutely.
that whole
Absolutely, as Doctor
episode.
absolutely as Dr. Finney said, that she's got the absolutely in the comments on it there. So I think they're already promoting the next one, right? The next big
Oh yeah,
so here,
I listen, but I don't. I listen just so I can kind of have like an awareness, but put any I don't put anything into it.
right.
Um, I I know what's happening. I see what's happening. It's not pleasant for us, but I'm just gonna be one of those that stands my ground on some things, and one of those things is gonna be my I'm gonna say God given right, as a person or a being.
Mhm.
You know, even the creator doesn't infringe on our free choice. So
Wow.
it's like for people to think that they have a right to do that. Now there must be structure, there must be an order, obviously, because some people's free choice would be to murder or to hurt. So we know that there has to be a law. But at the same time, when it comes to infringing on other people's bodies or their way of living, I think that that's wrong. And like I said, the creator doesn't even infringe on that. So
I
it's
think
like,
I think you bring up some good points there. Um, I really like when you said the creator doesn't even infringe upon it, go beyond a certain point. Now, the benefit there, the good side of it is that I like when you brought up the fact that whether it was television or social media, the people that were at our necks for not getting a shot or whatever, right? They, because everything was documented now with the technology and the social media and everything that we have on both sides. Now you get to see later on those same people are witnessing, like you said, the accounts now of, oh, this came up. It wasn't really what we thought it was, as far as this
well,
being
those
what we
that are
thought it
still
was.
alive.
Right. The health issues that are coming up that they're now documenting that are related to the supposed savior system and all this stuff, and you get to see that tension now in those people that were so against our stances at that moment. So what the exposure and diverse perspectives part of the internet, TV, and radio does is actually promotes the learning and appreciation of different cultures and ways of life, right? Because now those
Amen.
people that were so trusted on what the people in the suits say and the perceived authority figures, they might now have a little bit more appreciation for the difference in our culture, our way of thinking, and our way of life, and a broader understanding may also help impact behavior and self-expression as well. So I think creating safe spaces, like I said earlier, and support systems for individuals who do not conform to prevailing societal expectations in order to reduce isolation and increase visibility and representation is critical for us going forward. Especially in reaching the critical mass, we're going to need to have some serious change on this landmass and around the world. What do you think?
I have to 100% agree with you. And again, I'll use myself as an example. I haven't done my own channel. In quite a few months, I haven't been putting any of the information out there. And it's like when you don't have that support system, it's hard to, it's hard to project it. You know what I'm saying? And so it's like, I think it's very important not only to amplify the energy and to boost each other up and to even do this, because when you are stuck in a work cycle, it tends to have you weakened by the weekend. I don't
Ah,
know if there's a connection with that,
good
but
wordplay.
you know what I'm saying. So it's like, when you're already living and trying to pay bills, and I think that was also part of the plan. if we were constantly in a state of having to work, sleep, and then do everything else in 8 hours, what more can we truly do
Mhm.
within ourselves, and within, pushing any other type of ideology or any other type of information? You almost have no time left.
Right.
So yeah, it's very important for that. I'm thankful for you for reaching out to me this week, and it definitely kind of relit my spark. I'm very thankful for this conversation, and I think going forward, for those like us, so we can get so we could tip the scales. I think it's
Yeah.
important that we do start connecting more. That if you are a thinker and you are interested in conversations like you're watching now, reach out. Even make a comment. Reach out. To Pasha or I, or however. Because what you don't realize is even you reaching out to us helps us to keep going. We need it too, just as much as anybody else. And if we're ever going to tip those scales and truly bring a change, we got to start being just as active as they are. We got to start putting just as
Right.
many commercials,
Right.
music. I've got music I'm working on. I know you have music that you work on. And I haven't even recorded mine professionally yet. I have a couple of drafts, but it's like, we have to be as active as they are. They're putting
Yeah.
songs out every day. For those of us that do the music, for those of us that do the podcast, and this is a message even to myself, get to
Yeah.
work.
Get to work.
We're not going to get there if we don't put the work in. So it's time to
Exactly.
be connected. It's time to put the work in, and let's do it. Or we're never going to see the scales tip. And me personally, I'm here for it. That's part of why I'm here, is to tip those scales. And I know you are too. So let's
I
get to
like
work.
it. I like it. So I like it. Not only reach out to us, you may be a person, or they may be a person watching this that's not really into this, but they know they got people in their circle that they cringe up when they start talking about stuff like this. So just connect us to them so that we can all work together. And we ain't gotta convert you if you want to be the middleman. Just connect us to them. And that's how this grows and helps, because ultimately you're going to be affected by it. But what happens is a lot of people don't think that it's going to bother them or mess with them until it's too late, and they're like, oh my god, why this happened to us? Because you didn't share. What's that? So but as far as your music goes, I would say put that out, because copyright it, so you got to protect it and put it out. When you have a powerful message, you don't need to be all refined and super, $5,000 studio expenses and $25,000 to get your stuff on Billboard and all that stuff. You don't gotta do that. People appreciate the power of the message more than they do the refinement. Make it quality, but you don't gotta have that expense to go along with putting the message out there. Like you said, we need the message that we have. We need the radiation that we're giving, the broadcast that we're giving out there too. So don't delay on that either. I'm gonna keep it moving here, because in order to increase the awareness, that's going to help to the critical consumption factors. Like you said, I like that you mentioned it like that in the way that you did, because that's what we're talking about here, the consumption of media. And that directly ties into the increase in awareness of how media messages shape cultural and societal expectations. So we need to have that balance. We need more people out there doing it like that, regardless of
because they're not going to get it any other way.
their access. Right. And also, it's encouraging greater diversity and representation in media in order to increase visibility and promote a wider range of perspectives and experiences. The reason the algorithm don't push our shit the way it pushes the booty clapping, shoot 'em up, bang bang, is because the people click on the booty clapping, shoot 'em up, bang bang, and they scroll past our shit. So once it gets to a balance of equal clicks on each side, the algorithm gonna be like, well, you know what? I'm gonna have to, feed both of them up the ladder, right? So
Right.
let's tie this into the social credit score system real quick. And then we'll get into the 5 things I think we must do, which we kind of interwove some of them in there, and we can close and get out of here for the people. I think social institutions are gonna benefit from the ways in which cultural and societal expectations shape the behavior and self-expression, as it helps them to maintain social order and reinforce established power structures, which we kind of talked about indirectly and directly already. We're just going to put it on the table now clearly. So this could include the implementation of laws. Now they don't have to be laws, right? It could just be implied.
Right.
And policies that promote certain behaviors or restrict certain forms of self-expression. Like we need to get our music and get all this media out there that we're going to build. The authors, the poets, the people doing content like video content, we flood it now before they say, oh, that form of self-expression is no longer allowed, because if you put that out there, we're going to put you at the bottom of the social credit score list. And then what are your thoughts there?
Well, that actually brings a couple things to mind, including the chipping system that they're trying to start implementing now that some of us are not going to accept. And it's sick, but I have to agree with you. If we're going to do this, we have to start now, because it's already every single right or every single free expression, freedom of speech, all of these things are gradually being taken away from us. And just like you said, it doesn't even have to be a law. It could just be applied. For instance, the mask mandate, it was never a law, but we were mandated to wear these masks. And it's like, it's like, I don't want to say like Hitler and the Nazis, where, once they became, the popular force, that's when the bad stuff started happening. That's when people realized, oh, wait, this isn't just a regular government party. Now we're being forced to give up our guns, or this. We can read on that and just read how, it systematically went from, here to now we are shoving people into concentration camps. And it started with just a basic political party. We're never going to be heard if we don't put our voice out there. And if we want any type of change, it is the time now, because, even in just the last 10 years, we can look at how far it's gotten, even in the media, where even, Andrew Tate, there's even Jordan Peterson. I don't know if you know who these people are, but they're being blackballed because of the truth that they're speaking. One was even, I think, in prison. I think he's out now. And Jordan Peterson is being threatened with his however many year. So I think he's a psychologist, but being threatened to have his license and stuff taken away because he's not pushing what they want him to push, even though what he's pushing is actually more the truth than what they're pushing. So it's seen in several cases where this has already happened, and where people who are pushing the truth and more natural concepts are being blackballed and knocked down. If, let's say, like you said, in the societal ranking, if he's getting his license taken away and being taken down as what he's been known for all his life, you're basically taking his rank from here to here. And then you can no longer practice as a psychological physician. So now your money is toyed with. Now you're having to downsize, not knowing, I don't know what this man has going on. I don't know if he has stock. I don't know. Some people do, some people don't. So when certain things like this transpire, it has every capability to take you from this to this, even in the social, economic, financial standpoint. Because once you take somebody's livelihood away, or their ability, or their, I guess you could say, certification. What is it called?
Their security.
But what is it? I'm thinking more acceptance. Once there's another word for this, but when you take someone's ability to be accepted in society, like as a doctor or a psychologist or any of those things, and now they can no longer practice as that, you've taken their whole livelihood away, and you thus crippled them economically.
Right. You're making them irrelevant to like destroy the opposition to their story. I like to call it, as far as what relates to the social credit score, I think it's it incentivizes conformity to prescribed cultural and
Yeah.
societal expectations, by rewarding those who adhere and punishing those who deviate. And
And it happens all the time.
many's gonna feel the pressure to achieve the high score at the expense of reality and the truth. Um, and that's going to, and allow the enforcement of ideological values, promote certain beliefs or behaviors over others. And here we go back full circle, thus impacting the behavior and self-expression by limiting the range of acceptable viewpoints and restricting free expression. And of
And we
course, this
see
is
more
going
extreme cases of
to,
that.
of
Go
course,
ahead.
it's going to influence consumer behavior as well.
Yes. And I was going to say, we see more extreme cases of that, like maybe in other countries where there's Sharia law in place and certain things where they're really, put down to even more strict than where we're at in America's society. But if you look at what's transpiring, we're getting to a point where we're going to be close, to a lot of these things that we look at on TV or look at in history and say, oh, that can never happen. Well, we're getting really close to those things happening. And,
Never
when
say
people
never.
are scared, when you mess with people's money, you can honestly make people do more things with money than you can with physical torture. I mean, honestly, when you mess with people's money or their way of living, there's going to be a lot of people that are going to fold just based off of that.
Exactly. That's why we need to find out, like, not convert. You ain't got to be an extremist. You may be a chef. You may be a computer programmer. You may be a doctor of some sort. You may be any list of things. An accountant. We just need to find out who wants to go this way and who wants to go that way, so that we can prepare for the long term. I want to give this,
I
and then
agree.
we'll start to wrap up here, because I think as far as the social credit score system, I think it's gonna take us, right? Because obviously they're trying to railroad it over everybody, but I think we need to implement checks and balances to prevent the system from being used to restrict individual freedoms or promote a particular ideology or agenda. And then the question becomes, if your life depends on this, like we've pointed out here this whole show, and if this is where they're at now in your lifetime, consider the fact of what you're leaving behind if you don't do nothing for the future generation. If they're going this far, this direction, this fast, if we draw that graph, what is going to be imposed on our future generations that we're leaving behind? We have to, so consider that. So promoting transparency and accountability in the use of the system in order to reduce the potential for abuse or bias. Or, I mean, we just need to totally get rid of, not accept the system at all if they can't, if you can't do something like that.
I agree 100%.
Cool. So the 5 things I think we must do, which we kind of interwove into this, I think we need to educate ourselves on all the issues, right? Because if you can tell me how many points LeBron scored last night, but you don't know your constitutional rights, I'm a personally frown upon that. You know what I mean? I think we need to speak out. I like how you said we need to use our voice, and this is where it is. Whether you're an author, a painter, you're doing music, you're doing podcasts, or you just talking the heads off the people sitting next to you in the cubicle at work, use your voice.
Exactly.
I think we need to advocate for the change, because if we don't advocate for the change we want, somebody's advocating for the change they want. And like you said, they're using media and everything to influence everybody around us who's going to use normative social influence to peer pressure your ass into conforming. Number 4, we got to build the community. We build in everything else, but the society and the systems that we need to replace the oppression so that we can be free from it. Because you see that every time we go to boycott something, I'm not saying I personally boycott anything, because I either just don't shop there to begin with, or there's no point in boycotting it because 2 weeks later you're going to be going back to it, because we haven't as a community built anything to replace what you're trying to boycott to begin with. So you're ultimately got to return back to it. And then practice, like you said in your own words, practice self reflection by examining our own biases and prejudices. Then, once we get ourselves straight, we'll start to be able to hold each other accountable as a whole, and the body will grow. We got any
Amen.
closing remarks on all this?
I, you know, I agree with everything you're saying here, and it's like, in order for there to be a revolution, we have to start coming together. We have to stand up. We need to be connected. We need, even in, let's say, religious or Boy Scouts or Girl Scouts, there's always that camaraderie, that team effort that is what pushes the goal. And it's like, we really need that. We really need that, for one, in order to fully make a change and tip those scales. And then number two, to amplify what we're trying to do. A lot of things, even subconsciously, are rituals. And a lot of these rituals that are negative are being amplified and carried out. So it's like, we need to take that positive agenda that we have, that, like you said, whether we change how things are being done, or whether we just take it all away completely and just start a whole new thing. We need to get together, and we need to start amplifying those things, because that's how the vibration of that is going to, spread out and start touching others. And before you know it, people are going to realize, like, hey, this is what's going on. But people that are doing this are always angry. They're always frustrated. They're always, upset. But then here these people are, they're playing their music, and they're talking about, how we can make positive changes in society. And when you start looking at it, and when you start seeing the difference and the contrast of people and how they view things, even how they just treat others, I do feel like it will grow and it will spread. And I think it's very important that we come together.
Absolutely. So I want to thank everybody for watching today, whether it's today or in the future. I want you to go to your circle and ask the question, what are some of the societal expectations that impact the behaviors and your own self-expression? And how do these expectations differ across different groups or communities that you know of? Have the conversation with the people around you, and then we'll start to learn and grow that knowledge to be able to come together, because we've worked it out, or at least thought about it amongst ourselves. Shelly, say bye to the people.
Y'all have a good Sunday. Keep it safe. Keep it smooth.
Pasha Paroh Y NET 7. Thank you.